Let's begin with the chapter Terms, Concepts and Their Use in Sociology. Well, we have understood from the first chapter that the central task of sociology is to study the interplay of society and the individual. These individuals are a part of collective bodies like family, tribe, caste, class, clan, nation, etc. So individuals form groups, and there is a stratification system operating that puts groups in a hierarchy. So the question arises, why does sociology need to have a special set of terms? Here, I would like to refer to Berger, who said that we are so well acquainted with the social institutions that surround us that we cannot see them clearly or precisely. This means that the subject matter of sociology is familiar to us. We use terms like status and roles or social control in our daily life, and so there is even more of a need to develop terminology so as to distinguish sociological knowledge from common sense or naturalistic explanation. Just as sociology has a biography, likewise, sociological concepts too have a story to tell. Let me explain how. Sociology as a discipline was shaped by certain material and intellectual developments. The sociological concepts likewise reflect the concern of those social thinkers who wanted to understand and map the social changes that came about due to the shift from pre-modern to modern society. Note that from the early stage of sociology, there were many perspectives of understanding society. So there was Karl Marx's class and conflict concept, which viewed society as essentially conflict ridden, to the structural functionalists who found society essentially harmonious, having different parts and different functions that operate as a whole, much like an organism. Also, within sociology, some sociologists took up the study of human behavior, focusing on individual or micro interactions, while others began with structures like groups to macro structures such as class, caste, state, etc. So, these terms and concepts are the tools to help us understand the social reality. Therefore, the coexistence of different kinds of definitions or concepts about the same social entity are the hallmarks of sociology, as our society is diverse and there's a divergence of views. Now, let us look at social groups and society. Human beings interact, communicate, and construct social collectivities. One thing to keep in mind is that in every society, whether ancient or modern, collectivities have existed. And number two, the types of groups and collectivities vary from one society to the other. So, what is a social group? Well, it is a collectivity with the following 6 characteristics. Number 1, persistent interaction to provide continuity. Number 2, a stable pattern of these interaction. Number 3, a sense of belonging to the group. Number 4, shared interests. Number 5, common norms and values. Number 6, a definable structure. There are various types of groups. Note, not all the groups that we belong to carry equal importance for us. Some groups have a greater personal association and influence many aspects of our lives. So, based on the degree of association and cooperation, we have primary or secondary groups on the basis of orientation. The primary groups have a sense of belonging. This is a small group of people connected by intimate face-to-face association and cooperation. Example, family, village, group of friends. This group is more person-oriented. Secondary groups are relatively larger in size and have a formal and impersonal relationship. These groups are more goal oriented. Example, schools, government offices, hospitals, students, associations, etc. Next, on the basis of way of life, we have community, society, and association. A community, as compared to a society and association, is marked by a highly personal, intimate, and enduring relationship. In a community, there is total or considerable involvement of the persons, while in the case of the society and association, this kind is having an impersonal, superficial, and transitory relationship. There is a rational and calculated approach in the dealings in the case of society and association vis-a-vis community. The third type of group that we're going to look at is on the basis of belonging, that is the in-group and the out-group. So, in an in-group, there is the feeling of oneness and cooperation vis-a-vis each other. Say, for example, the students who belong to a particular school are the in-group, as against those who do not belong to that school, and they are considered the out-group. Another example would be migrants, who are often considered as an out-group vis-a-vis the citizens of a country who are the in-group. The next group that we're looking at is the reference group. There are always some groups who we look up to and aspire to be like them and try to emulate them. These are the reference groups. Remember, reference groups are important sources of information about culture, lifestyles, aspirations, and goal attainment. Note that the process is gendered to an extent, in the sense that it has different implications for men and women. For example, it might be okay for men to emulate the sense of dress and habits of the West, but it will not be the same for the women. Now, let us look at the last group, that is the peer groups. Well, this is a kind of primary group consisting of individuals of the same age or professional group. These groups have a strong influence on the life of an individual, and hence they are a kind of primary group. Peer groups exercise social pressure in the sense that they exercise pressure on individuals on what they ought to do or not to do, and this is called peer pressure. Now, what is social stratification? Well, it refers to the existence of structured inequalities between groups in a society in terms of their access to material or symbolic rewards. This can be access to opportunities for health, educational success, work, and political influence, etc. Remember, inequality of power and advantage is central for sociology because of the crucial place of stratification in the organization of society, as every aspect of the life of every individual is affected by it. So, historically, four basic systems of stratification have existed in human societies. Number one, slavery. Number two, caste. Number three, estate. And number four, class. Let's go over them one by one. Let's begin with slavery. Well, slavery is an extreme form of inequality in which people are treated as a commodity and are literally owned by others. There are two major examples of a system of slavery. Number one, the ancient Greece and Rome, and number two, in the southern state of the United States of America, that is between the 18th and 19th century. As a formal institution, slavery has been abolished. However, another form of exploitation came into the picture, and that was bonded labor. A person becomes a bonded laborer when their labor is demanded as a means of repayment for a loan. The person is tricked and trapped into working for very little or no pay. Bonded labor is prohibited in India by law via Article 21 and 23 of the Indian Constitution. Now, students, please note that, alright? And another term for bonded labor is indentured labor. Now, let us look at estates. Well, this system was a characteristic of feudal Europe. It was the main form of political and social organization from the end of the Western Roman Empire until the early modern era. The society was divided into three estates or social classes that determined a person's access to rights and privileges. At the top, there were the clergy, followed by the nobility, and the last was the common people, that is, anyone who did not belong to the upper two classes was dumped into this category. The upper two groups had all the privileges and the rights to not pay taxes, and the taxes were extracted from the last category, that is, the common people. Now, the French Revolution was instrumental in bringing an end to this system. Now, let's move on to the caste. In a caste society, status attributes are ascribed by birth. That is, your birth determines your caste. In a traditional Indian society, different castes formed a hierarchy of social importance. Each position in the caste structure was defined in terms of its purity or pollution relative to others. The belief was that the Brahmins were the most pure and superior caste to all others, and the Panchamas or the outcasts were the inferiors to all other castes. There is a fourfold traditional system of Varna that consists of Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. In reality, there are many occupation-based caste groups called jatis. Note that the traditional caste system in India has undergone considerable changes over the years. With urbanization and the setting up of modern industries, along with increased movement of people within India, this all has led to an achievement-based society. Today, acute caste discrimination exists. At the same time, the working of democracy has affected the caste system. Castes as an interest group have gained strength. Those castes that were discriminated against have now started asserting their democratic rights in the society. So, caste as an interest group has gained strength. Now, let us look at class, and we're going to discuss the three central ideas. The first one, that is the functionalist theory of social stratification, begins with the belief that no society is classless or unstratified. This is necessary for motivating individuals in the social structure. That is, it is an unconsciously evolved device which ensures that the important positions are filled by the most qualified persons. Secondly, in the Marxist theory, social classes are defined by what relation they have to the means of production. That is, whether they are owners of the means of production or they provide their labor. And third, Weber looked at it from the point of view of life chances, which refers to the rewards and advantages afforded by market capacity. Inequality might be based on economic relations or on political power and prestige. The modern class system is open and achievement based. a person is born into a social ranking but can move up or down from his or her class more easily, and there's no constraint on achievement. Now we will move on to the next subtopic, status and role. Now, what is a status? It is a position in a society or a group. An individual occupies many such positions in a society. So, in effect, status is a social position with defined rights and duties assigned to these positions. A status is an institutionalized role. For example, a mother occupies a status which has many norms of conduct and responsibilities. A role is the dynamic or the behavioral aspect of status. So, as compared to a simple society, in a modern complex society, each individual occupies many different kinds of status during the course of his or her life. So, this is called a status set. A status which is attained in succession or sequence is called a status sequence. Example, son becoming a father, then a grandfather, then a great grandfather. When we look at status, we can look at it in terms of achieved status and ascribed status. What is an achieved status? Well, a person through education, income, or professional expertise can voluntarily, through personal ability, acquire a particular status. While in the case of an ascribed status, the position is by birth or assumed involuntarily. Example, age, caste, race, kinship, etc. Also, status and prestige are interconnected terms. Every status is accorded with rights and values, and these values are attached to the social position, not to the person who occupies it, nor to his or her actions. And this is an important thing to note. The kind of value attached to a status or office is called prestige. And what occupation is considered prestigious varies across societies and, of course, time periods. So, we have people performing their roles as per social expectations, that is, both role taking and role playing. When contrary expectations arise from two or more roles corresponding to one or more status, then people experience incompatibility, which leads to role conflict. Both genders may experience role conflict. For example, a middle class woman managing her role as a mother and wife at home and that of a professional at work. Role stereotyping is a process of reinforcing some specific role for some member of the society. Example, for men as the breadwinner and for the women as the homemaker. These roles are internalized through socialization and carried out. However, it is wrong to assume that humans are passive subjects of socialization. They assume a social role through an ongoing process of social interaction. Note, roles and status are not given and fixed. People do make efforts to resist and fight against discriminatory roles and status like caste, gender, or race, challenging the status quo. Likewise, individual violation of rules are often punished. So society thus functions not just with roles and status, but also with social control. So let's look at society and social control. Well, social control refers to the various means used by society to bring its recalcitrant members back into line. That is, to keep a tab on people who deviate from the societal norms. This is essential for maintaining social order. Sociology has different perspectives on social control. On one hand, we have the functionalists who understood society as essentially harmonious. So, for them, social control refers to number one, the use of force to regulate the behavior of the individual and groups. Number two, enforcing of values and patterns for maintaining order in a society. That is, for maintaining stability in the society, deviant behavior of individuals and groups is kept under check, and mitigation of tensions and conflicts is undertaken to maintain social cohesion and social order. Conflict theorists, so society is essentially unequal, unjust, and exploitative. So, social control is seen as a mechanism of control by the dominant social classes on the rest of the society. Social control can be both through the use of force, and physical violence is one of the oldest means to regulate the behavior of the individual and groups, or through the enforcing of values and patterns for maintaining order in the society. So, social control is both formal and informal. Formal is when codified systematic and formal mechanisms are brought into use through agencies such as the law and the state. The modern society emphasizes the use of formal mechanisms of social control. Informal social control is personal, unofficial, and uncodified. This includes smiles, using body language, frowns, criticisms, and ridicule. There are great variations in their use within the same society. Also, they are highly effective in day-to-day life. However, in some cases, informal methods of social control might not be the right thing to do. That is, they might be too extreme in conforming social obedience, and here the instance of honor killing is the perfect example. Now, in order to enforce socially expected forms of behavior, we have sanctions. A sanction is a mode of reward for good behavior or a punishment for bad behavior, so as to reinforce socially accepted forms of behavior. Individuals in a society sometimes do not conform to the norms and values held by both members of the group or society, and this mode of action is called deviance. Remember, what constitutes deviance varies from culture to culture and from one time period to another. Example, a woman choosing to be an astronaut or a fighter pilot was considered deviant at one time, and now it is applauded in the very same society. So, with this, I'm going to conclude this chapter.